All right. Hey guys, what's up? It's Wolf01Noli. How are my adventures doing? So, we're going to be talking about the phases for any developer who's actually interested in Monster Girl Utopia, which I will talk about a little bit about Monster Girl Utopia as of right now. So, Monster Girl Utopia is mostly inspired by a game I recently played and tried and for the first time, which was Monster Girl Quest. I think it was Paradox. And you would be surprised, yes, that's my first time playing this. This whole project was never inspired by that. I just wanted to make a Monster Girl creature collector that originally was going to be inspired off of Pokemon, but we changed so many things just because I don't care for the Pokemon like systems and everything. Like relearning the advantage system is just gotten very boring for me over the years. So I was just sitting there like, why would I force people to do something that I think is boring? So yeah, it is going to be basically instead of advantages, it's going to be elemental resist. Things like oh, okay, this character's using a thunder attack, and I only have only resist thunder by 30%, or oh, okay, you take 30% more thunder damage, stuff like that. That's where it's going to be more inspired towards, instead of like, oh, it's perfective, oh, that wasn't so strong BS. Nobody wants to relearn those advantage systems every single time. It gets tiring and old, and I would prefer just to go back to the old days where we use resist. And that's also something that's going to play into the gear system, because it's originally supposed to be a creature collector dungeon crawler with a random gear system, to where random stats are on the gear. So you have a chance, let's say this item is locked into like 2 slots, and if you get the item, there's going to be 2 stats on it. It'll be like say 5% resist or 5% attack added onto your stats, stuff like that. That's originally how it's supposed to go. There's a set number of slots for a certain gear instead of the dungeon you're grinding, and then there's a whole list of what those stats could roll into, with also a cap between those stats of, let's say if it's like a common item, and you get roll attack stat, and the attack stat limit of that early dungeon for that common is 1% attack to 5%. So it will roll between, you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5% on that. And there is no, I don't know if I really want to do like the point system. There's like, oh, you get 1.5%. I don't think I'm gonna do that, but it also really depends on how the community would feel about that, because I'm really trying to stay away from the 0.5 system. Well, not the 0.5. I'm really trying to stay away from the point number system, to where, instead of just having that 1.8 or 1.9, it would just be like, it rounded up to 3, so it's 3%, brother. Instead of just like, okay, round down to 2%. I'm really trying to avoid that, but like I said, it depends on the community and what they would want and what they would prefer. So we're going to be staying inside of that area. So yeah, the random gear and everything, kind of talked about, that's going to be like way further down the road before we actually like get started on gear and stuff. Right now we're focusing on getting the project started and working on the battle system before we like move on to anything else. So with that said, let's go ahead and talk about the first phase. And if you are a developer that is more skilled inside of Unity, Godot, or Unreal Engine, and are really interested into working on an RPG game with random loot and the things that I just discussed, this project could be very interesting to you. And I will disclose towards the end of talk about this phase of how to contact me and what you're looking for, and basically all the other stuff you'll need to know. So with that said, that is the basic introduction to Monster Girl Utopia. It is mostly going to be a lot more anime inspired too, because we aren't doing the whole capture system. We're doing the anime logic of defeating a monster girl, and they have a chance of dropping their monster crystal, which you would take back to the village and reincarnate them. There you go. That's how you get rid of the shitty ass Pokeball system. Anyhow, okay, so let's get into the first phase of everything that we're going to be doing, and once we complete it, then I'll release a second phase video, and basically talking more about what the second phase we're going to be doing. So with that said, the first phase will be our town map. Like, obviously we have a map here, but I am getting this animated, so it will be animated and put up on DeviantArt, more than likely. This map has been made for quite a while. Pretty sure since like June the 14th, around June the 14th, it's been made. But we uploaded it to Discord, the exclusive Discord, which you can only get in through like any other subscriptions, stuff like that. And what we're going to do for this map is this is going to be our point and click map, our 2D map. We did say that we're still going to do the 2D sprites / 3D worlds. We're still going to do that, but like I said, we're going to make it into an option on like startup or in settings to where you can switch between 2D or the 2.5D. So whichever one you feel like you want to play, there's certain advantages to it. Is why we chose this, is because in 2D you can just click around, you don't have to run around the whole map or anything. But in the 2.5D, you can just run around and explore the world a little bit more, and be immersed a little bit. But right now we're focusing on the 2D map, just so we don't have to burn too much of our budget working into another map. So with that said, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna have some buttons, and these buttons are just basically to get the project started. So we're gonna have battle test, to where it will randomly select monster girls to fight, and the next button is going to be the team selector, to where you'll go in and select any monster girl that is currently in the system. So if Tigura's in there, you can put in Tigura into your slot, or you can replace it with a different monster girl, stuff like that. So I guess monster selector would be more wise to put as the name of it, whichever one, because we're not going to be doing the team thing just yet. It'll probably just be 1v1s before we start adding like way more slots and everything, because I do want it to be like difficulty increasing to where it starts adding more and more monster girls as you go, and you unlock 4v4 world battles and shit like that, to where you have like a team 4 going into a dungeon. So slowly just progressing there. So as of that, then once you push escape, there will be 6 choices that show up on the screen. 5 of these choices will not be worked on inside of phase 1, and that is player info, adventure book, party, inventory, and save and load. Those will not be worked on in any way inside of this phase 1. The only thing that will be worked on is settings. So settings should take you to the game settings, obviously, and the only tab that should be there in the game setting is sound. And with sound, the only thing that should be in there is the background music, and that slider should lower or increase the volume. That's the only thing that we need inside of phase 1 for this, just to not like overstimulate people or the developer itself. So the next thing we're going to talk about is actually extremely important. I guess we're going to have a upload monster girl tab for modders, just in case they want to put in their own monster girls, because we are heavily leaning towards a modding community, because I want people to be able to put in their own monster girls and to be able to enjoy the game. Obviously, I've always been a huge supporter of modding, so let's keep the project more mod friendly and focused. So an easy way, so the first thing we're going to do is setting up the system for monster girls and the stats and stuff like that, and an easy way to add monster girls for both development and the modding community. So the first things we're going to talk about is that the main needs are the name, level, the origin, and the rank. So let's go ahead and talk about these. The name obviously speaks for itself. Is going to be their name and showing up when you encounter them. The level, self-explanatory. The origin itself is going to be explained in this way. Hold on, let me find it. Okay, so basically the origin system deals with certain passives. Like there's certain monster girls that have like passives that deal damage to anything that is like yokai originated, or earthly originated, or heavenly. So let me go ahead and explain the origins. So fantasy, elves, dragons, orcs, etc. Mythological, succubus, hydras, nagas, etc. Yokai, kappa, snow women, or snow woman, whichever one, etc. Earthly, deers, cows, puppeteers, etc. Fairy tale, Little Red Riding Hood, Snow White, Robin Hood. Parodies, technically parodies, yes. Heavenly, angels. Unknown, terror. Another monster I'm not gonna spoil, etc. Tech, mechanical monster girls or machine types, and world bounds, which are monster girls that originated from that world of the game, which Tigura is one of the originated ones. So basically, like I said, fantasy, mythological, yokai, earthly, fairy tale, heavenly, unknown, tech, and worldbound. Basically to give you knowledge of where they originated. So some monster girls will have more damage towards heavenly units, you know, stuff like that. The rank itself has really no significance. It might, later on, I might tie it to XP, but it mostly should show difficulty of how rare it is to find or how strong it is. Okay, so the rankings are very simple. So there will be F rank, E rank, D rank, C rank, B rank, A rank, S rank, double S rank, maybe triple S rank, and I guess the last one will probably be either XE or L for legendary. And that'll probably be where I want it to stop, honestly, until like way further notice. But basically just showing you basically the ranking of like where monster girls stop at. So originally most slimes and elves, more slimes and goblins are F tier. Well, F tier. F rank. I'm already making a tier system in my head. Wolves can be E, you know, orcs can be D, stuff like that. And we'll just go down the whole ranking of picking each one. But the ranking can go up as they evolve too. So as for the stats themselves, so there needs to be HP, mana, physical attack, magic attack, physical defense, magic defense, speed, crit chance, crit damage, evasion, hit chance, and mana regen. Those are the main stats that each monster girl needs to have. As for resistance stats, we are doing a resistance system compared to RPG Maker instead of the Pokemon system. Obviously, I said that. For an example, oh yeah, I already made that example. Anywho, the resistance that are known at the moment, these could change depending on what monster girls we make and their lure. So the resistance stats are going to be normal, water, fire, thunder, earth, wind, ice, darkness, holy, blood, and toxic. Those are the only ones that we have planned at the moment. That could be changed in the future. Some of them could be removed, some of them can be added. I'm still working on how the if I'm going to add resistance for status effects and things for that nature. I probably am. I probably will, honestly. It would make sense to do that just because, you know, if you're able to stun a boss to death, that could be an issue, especially if it's a raid boss. Or I could just give it a buff and it's just like, hey, you're immune to this. Fuck them. But anyhow, the next one is the Monster Girl selector box UI. So the example I have on screen for you now is basically what we were talking about. This is how it should, well, I wouldn't say this is exactly what it should look like. This is basically what it should look like. And this will show you basically, oh yeah, I forgot. This is the older picture to where I showed like roles, what they're good at, you know, stuff like that, little basic knowledge. And primarily fire and normal moves. Just to give the player extra details. We're probably going to remove both of these. But as you can see, it shows like pretty much Takura's basic stats and everything. And how much crit chance she has, damage she does, evasion chance, and then her status effects. So if it is 0, it should be grayed. If it is in a negative and they take more damage from it, it should be red and negative. If they take, well, if they're resistant to it, it should be a plus and it should be green. Obviously, basic knowledge. And I don't know about the moves being down here. I guess what moves are currently equipped should show up like this. That makes sense. Passives are going to be way further, so ignore this. This is the earlier stages of the first time we attempted this, to where the stats showed up and there were like 0 points. Well, 1.0. This is exactly what I was talking about with the percentages and everything of like if necklaces had like had like 0.1 or something like that. We just don't want the 0 showing up. You know, it looks a lot cleaner when we go back to the original image that we showed and compare it. It looks a lot cleaner and you don't have to look at those zeros, and you know, you get a better understanding. Everything was supposed to be rounded up or down. If 5 and over, round up. If lower, 4 and down. So yeah. I'm pretty sure we already showed the combat screen as well multiple times. So this is generally what the combat encounter supposed to look like. But if the developer himself have a better idea of the outcome of it, I have no problem talking it out, because, you know, there could be better ways of making it look. But at the moment, this is currently what is going to be. You know, we have example of buffs down here and stuff, debuff and buffs, where buffs pop up at the top and debuffs at the bottom. Or you could just, you know, kind of push each other out, where debuffs or buffs are shown first and debuffs are shown afterwards, after the buffs. That also could be a thing too. There's no stats showing here or in here. You can only see them when you hover over said monster girl or targeting them, stuff like that. So there is another one, which is the double battles, you know. And as you can see, the monster girls that we have to the right are all of our party members. And you have the turn counter too, because sound passes will deal with the turns. Genuinely, I will say this to any developer who's watching this right now: we have had an issue with image fitting. So if you can make a way to where, instead of anchoring it from the top to bottom to left and right, instead kind of anchor it from the corner to where they fit a lot better, that would also be great and a lot better than what we attempted to do in the other stages of trying to get this started. So yeah, image fitting. If we can figure out a system to where we can individually, every monster girl, how to fit them. How do I say this? So let's say the number one character I've had an issue with this about, it would probably be Dark Elf Novice, who's probably gonna get a name change later on, but you know. But yes, Dark Elf Novice, her staff is way too tall, and she doesn't fit. This when I met the main issue. So I had to squish in both the left and right sides for her to look normal when putting her into the game. So that's something we're gonna have to figure out and fix. So here's the next issue. If I try to change the box of it, it changes the box for all of them. So if we can figure out a way when we're implementing the monster girls, or when an artist is implementing a monster girl as well, or excuse me, a modder as well, or implementing them, not, you know, be too giant or anything, and so they won't have to redraw anything or shrink anything, keep saving over and over again. This would be a lot easier for them to, you know, do this if there's just already something implemented in the game itself. So coming out of that, we do have a placeholder that I did find on that I did find on Google. So that's what we're going to be using. The basic mechanics and everything is, you guys saw those buttons inside of the battle system. So every turn, mana regen comes back because every move is going to be based on mana and how much mana you have. So the rest button will skip your turn if you are so let's say you don't have any mana for any of your moves, you just use the rest button, then it will basically skip your turn. All right, so let's talk about the speed system. So let's say we do the same thing as Pokemon and do the whole priority thing. It would make sense to put into the game here. So let's say there are 3 priority moves. First priority is the fastest, which means that move goes first no matter what. Normal, which means it's just based off of your actual speed and who is fastest. Then the third one is, hey, you use this after. So most moves will be speed 2 or priority 2. There will be some that are priority 1 and some of them that are priority 3. But most will be normal 2. So it is to basically cancel out the whole, well, somewhat cancel out the whole speed is king thing. So you don't have to worry about that like too much. Speed will probably be really rare when it comes to like gear drop, honestly. Just for obvious reasons of wrecking a lot of the balancing I would have to do anyway, considering the gear will be introduced. Damage. Next is damage formula. Okay, so let's talk about damage calculation. This one looks complicated, but it's actually a lot more simple than what you're actually like thinking it is. So ally physical damage. Well, let's say we're using Tigura, and Tigura is using a physical. Let's say Tigura's physical attack is at 60, and the skill that she uses is like fire element 0.5, and it's already hitting on the monster girl, the enemy monster girl that has 20 defense and has time to, well, no, 0.5%, 0.5 resist, and the final damage equaling up to being 20. So as you heard, I said skill. So the skill itself would have the elemental damage on it. I am still thinking about if I want to continue to have the skill as the damage, or if I want to add it to the monster girl as well, because this could be an even more tricky thing to balance, because also you got to remember that your gear pull will be increased a lot more to where you'll be getting like thunder element attack increase or fire element attack increase instead of the resist that you're looking for, or vice versa. So I'm not sure if I want to add more to the pool, but at the moment, this is how we're doing it. If you guys have any opinions that you want to throw out there, you are more than welcome, and we can actually change it as we're going on. This is to show the phases to the developers who are interested in the project, or, you know, you guys throw out your 2 cents and think of like a better, you know, thing to add. Okay, so Obviously, we can't have players spamming certain moves over and over again. So, let's talk about this anti-spam of moves. Players should not be able to spam moves. It will cause issues towards future mechanics of codes. So when a player uses a damage move, we should make the monster girl blink red and take the damage first, like in Pokemon, then lock them out of the next move until the blinking is done so dialogue at top can go through. Now, I said this weirdly just so you guys can panic. No, I didn't add a cooldown. I didn't add a cooldown timer. I might, depending on how it goes. I might. But as of right now, no, I'm not adding a cooldown timer. It's just basically to keep players from like spamming the hell out of the button for the game to like lock up and glitch out. This basically just to prevent a bug. The HP should also slowly lower from the attack instead of instantly. So in short, we will lock players out from spamming the attack until all 3 checkpoints are done. Damage blinks, combat log, and HP lowering. That's something I had to make sure was not going to happen, because obviously it was going to be something that could happen if ignored. Combat music and world music should be loopable. They all should loop. I've already made sure that my music artists made all songs loopable. Now, the best loopable things to where you can't tell if it looped? No. You can tell if it looped. But yeah. Well, some of them you can tell if it looped. But yeah, make sure that all the songs are loopable. You guys have seen that we had issues with looping songs looping a little bit too well. But whenever you hover over an attack or move, it should display what it does. And as for the monster girls themselves, I do have stats and moves for each monster girl, which I will put a little video on the screen. So Tigura, you guys have seen her stats and everything. Those are subject to change. Her moveset. So Blazing Strike should cost 10 mana. It is a physical attack move, fire elemental. And it should be 90% accuracy. The minimum or maximum damage, 12% to 18%. So this is just to keep RNG in, high roll, low roll, just to keep it unpredictable so, players can have a little bit of a moment. Description, afterwards, it should increase the speed temporarily. So you have a chance of getting a speed boost out of Blazing Strike. For developers looking at this, hey, don't worry about the temporary speed boost. Just ignore this. We're not doing the whole status effects and anything into like the second phase. Ignore this, and you're gonna ignore this. This doesn't exist. This is just a little bit of extra details. Then the next one was downward slash, which would cost 0. Physical attack, normal, 95% chance, and should be 8 to 12%. I'm gonna be giving you guys all this information as well. You guys can see Slime Warriors 2. Basically the same thing. Ignore all of the extra stats and everything. Just focus on dealing the damage, and that's it. Dealing the damage, and that's it. Ignore the passives too. So that is basically phase 2. Okay, so basic summary. Get the tile map in there, the settings, and the buttons on the sides of the map itself. Then make an easy way to enter combat and test. Make an easy way for monster girls to be added and their images to be adjusted to where it fits in multiple different places, or it can fit, or actually this is going to be a different one, because it needs to be able to be adjusted to fit on the monster girl selector and it needs to be able to fit inside of its encounter images and its battle image, which is on the bottom corners with its HP bar above it. So that's going to be something that's going to be probably the most difficult one in my opinion. And hopefully you guys can figure that out because a lot of developers I've hired have had maximum trouble with that adjusting. So we'll talk about that in more detail later. But combat system, the mana gauge, the HP gauge, the turn counter, the resting system needs to restore your mana, and every turn needs to automatically restore your mana too, as well. Moves should be turned off if you have no mana, so they can't just spam it off of just empty mana gauge. If you have a better damage formula to talk about, let me know. Just communicate with me. I have no problem talking and communicating with it. So pretty much getting down to the wire here, there are 8 things that I would love for you to email me with. And this is the email address that I will be putting in the description or comment. If I forget it, just ask for it and I will send it to you in reply. So the first thing is obviously the name you want to be called when it comes to like videos or anything like that. Your price for if it's like per system added to the game, or if it's like per phase, or I could have sworn I changed this to per week because hour, I can't really do hour right now. Or memberly payment, which is basically like the payment is based off of how many members that we have, like part of Patreon, Subscribestar, and DeviantArt. Basically, the more people we get on those, the more your payment will be. But if it's not like too much, I really can't do anything there. So you're basically working passionately until those things start taking off. So once the Patreon, Subscribestar, and everything starts taking off, I will be able to, adjust that and keep it going. But we also still have to keep budget for the game. So whichever way it goes, you'll start getting paid more as long as the game keeps going. And I have a lot of things to keep going. Like this project will probably last for at least, who knows, a couple of years, honestly, with how many ideas I have. Your preferred engine, if it's Unreal Engine, Unity, or Godot, how much time you have to work on the game, because that's another issue we've had. We had a lot of busy people who really don't have the time to be able to work on this stuff, which is also fine as long as you're making, progress every week. I have no problem with that, especially if you're working passionately. I don't have any complaints. I'm a very patient person, honestly. I'm very patient. Like, if you've talked to anybody who've actually worked with me, I am very lenient and flexible on time. So next thing is, if there's any games you've worked on, that's optional. Just to see where you are gauged at. How much confidence do you have working on the project just after watching the video? Just give me a ballpark. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm a total expert or anything like that. Just give me your confidence level. Type in that you can complete all this. You know quite a bit of things that you can do, stuff like that. Are you confident to make the game moddable as it goes on? And also leave why you are interested in the project. If you're a Monster Girl lover, if you just really love the idea of Monster Girl Utopia being like a creature collector dungeon crawler with randomized gear and stuff like that, just let me know. Okay, anywho, with that said, I'm gonna have to end off there. I got a lot of things to set up and do, but with this going through, I'm gonna be taking quite a few weeks just to get enough people talk to them, you know, and really get to know them. So there probably won't be as much as I'm thinking, but I do want to give it like at least a month before I set in stone hire somebody. You know, maybe give them like a little bit of a test just to see how well they do with just like the combat, or just like a preview of the combat. Something like that. With that said, I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, peace out.